Welcome to Le Weekend, your essential roundup of French news on culture, business, the economy, and current affairs. We bring you a convenient way to catch up on the stories from the past week in France, plus an additional focus feature blending reportage and cultural context. These are the headlines for Monday, February 9th. Bank of France Governor François Villeroy de Galhau will stand down in June, more than a year before the end of his term, allowing President Macron to name his replacement before a 2027 presidential election, as reported by Reuters. Resistance fighter Marc Bloch will be laid to rest in the Pantheon on June 23rd. Last November, during the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Strasbourg, President Macron announced the induction into the Pantheon of the historian, resistance fighter, and committed intellectual who was executed by the Gestapo, as reported by France 24. France will set out an ambitious energy plan this week, which Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu said will include doubling the country's energy consumption from electricity to 60% by 2030, as reported by Reuters. These are the headlines on Tuesday, February 10th. French wine, spirits and exports fell last year to their lowest volume in at least 25 years as US tariffs and Chinese duties hit sales and a strong euro made some alcohol more expensive. Industry group FEVS said on Tuesday, warning of no imminent relief, as reported by Reuters. In related news, the United States remains the leading export market for French wines and spirits in 2025, despite a 21% drop in exports. According to the Federation of Wine and Spirit Exporters, overseas sales of wine, champagne, and cognac fell by 8% in value year-on-year in 2025, reaching $14.3 billion, just under $17 billion, as reported by Le Monde. President Emmanuel Macron is set to participate in New Delhi's AI Summit during a visit to India next week. During the visit from February 17th to 19th, he will hold talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as reported by Reuters. 500 people were evacuated from a migrant camp in Calais. Among them, 163 agreed to be taken into state care, and 26 people in irregular situations were arrested. At the end of January, 650 people had been evacuated from the same area, southeast of the city, as reported by France Info. These are the news for Wednesday, February 11th. The French central bank sees a first quarter growth of 0.2 to 0.3%. The central bank said on Wednesday that the outlook picked up at the start of the year, with businesses reporting a firmer than expected rebound in activity and signaling that momentum should carry into the coming months, according to the central bank's statement as reported by Le Figaro. Regulators have paused approval of a UK-France power interconnection. British and French energy regulators said on Wednesday that they cannot approve a new power interconnection between Britain and France as conditions have not been met, as reported by Reuters. France's foreign minister has notified prosecutors about a middle-ranking French diplomat who had ties to Jeffrey Epstein and is suspected of transferring United Nations documents to the late convicted sex offender, as reported by France 24. France is investigating the death of a third baby who consumed recalled formula. The French Health Ministry said on Wednesday that investigators are examining the death of a third baby who had consumed infant formula covered by precautionary recalls, as reported by Libération. The news on Thursday, February 12th. France's new energy law slashes renewable targets and eases pressure on public utility EDF. France set out a new energy law after years of wrangling, which slashes its wind and solar power targets and drops a mandate for state-run firm EDF to shutter nuclear plants, as reported by Reuters. India backed over 30 billion euros in military upgrades with more Rafale fighters and Boeing P-81s. India on Thursday gave initial clearance for a 3.6 trillion rupee, around $40 billion boost to the country's armed forces, including procurement of more French Rafale fighter jets for the Air Force and Boeing P-81s reconnaissance aircraft for the Navy, as reported by Boursier. Nebius, the Amsterdam-based AI cloud services firm, said on Thursday it is planning to build a new 240-megawatt data center in Béthune, near Lille in the north of France, that will be one of Europe's largest when it is finished, as reported by Reuters. These are the headlines on Friday, February 13th. French police arrested 9 people in an investigation into a Louvre ticket fraud that may have cost the world's most visited museums 10 million euros, approximately $11.8 million in revenues, according to the Paris prosecutor's office, as reported by Reuters. Following a knife attack on police officers in Paris, the Anti-Terrorism Prosecutor's Office took charge of the case. The National Anti-Terrorism Prosecutor's Office announced that it had taken over the investigation into a knife attack earlier in the day against police officers near the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. The attacker died after being shot by police in retaliation, as reported by France 24. The French prosecutor's office opened a probe into baby milk brands over contamination. The Paris public prosecutor has opened 5 investigations into baby milk brands distributed by Nestlé, Lactalis, Danone, Baby Bio, and La Marque after contamination with the toxin cerulide, as reported by Reuters. Far-right leader Marine Le Pen's eligibility to run for the presidency is to be ruled on appeal in July. The public prosecutor has requested a 5-year ban on her standing for election, which could compromise her candidacy in the 2027 presidential election. Meanwhile, the president of Les Républicains Party, Bruno Retailleau, announced that he would be entering the race for the presidency, as reported by France 24. You are listening to Le Weekend. And now that you're all caught up with the news from the past week, it's time for our focus story. Today we look at why a resistance fighter from World War II made the news this week. Resistance fighter Marc Bloch will be laid to rest in the Pantheon in Paris on June 23rd. Last November, during the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Strasbourg, President Macron announced the induction into the Pantheon of this historian, resistance fighter, and committed intellectual who lost his life during World War II. This posthumous honor, confirmed by the President's entourage on February 8th this week, recognizes Bloch's work, teaching, and courage. His family expressed emotion over the decision, but urged excluding far-right elements from the ceremony. As France prepares for this event amid ongoing reflections on its World War II legacy, Bloch's story offers a poignant entry into the broader saga of the French resistance, a clandestine network of civilians, soldiers, and intellectuals who defied Nazi occupation and Vichy collaboration from 1940 to 1944. Marc Bloch was born in 1886 to a Jewish family from Alsace, emerged as a pioneering medieval historian, who transformed the discipline by integrating sociology, geography, psychology, and economics into historical analysis. From 1919 to 1936, he taught at the University of Strasbourg, where he co-founded the Annales d'Histoire économique et sociale in 1929 with Lucien Febvre, birthing the influential Annales school that emphasized long-term social structures over political events. A decorated World War I captain with the Croix de Guerre, Bloch analyzed France's 1940 defeat in his unpublished manuscript L'étrange défaite, The Strange Defeat, blaming elite complacency and societal failures rather than solely military shortcomings. Posthumously published in 1946, it remains a seminal critique of national malaise, with Bloch famously declaring his identity as a Jew, but I die a Frenchman. Bloch joined the resistance between late 1942 and March 1943, spurred by Operation Anton, when German forces occupied Vichy France. Using the pseudonym Narbonne, the 57-year-old historian started with message delivery but soon organized networks, gathered intelligence, and planned sabotage in the Rhône-Alpes region. His methodical approach earned respect from younger fighters despite his age and physical limits. Bloch was arrested on March 8, 1944, as part of a wave that netted approximately 63 resistance members across the Lyon area. He endured torture at Montluc prison under Gestapo chief Klaus Barbie before execution by firing squad on June 16, 1944, along with more than 20 other resistance members. Vichy propagandist Philippe Henriot branded Lyon the capital of the resistance in its destruction, spotlighting Bloch as a Jew funded by London and Moscow. Let's take this opportunity to look at the origins of the French resistance. The movement crystallized after France's June 1940 armistice with Nazi Germany, dividing the country into occupied North and the quote-unquote free Vichy South under Marshal Philippe Pétain. Initial first resistors published clandestine newspapers, forged documents, and aided Jews and downed Allied pilots amid Vichy anti-Semitic laws, like the March 27, 1942 roundup of French Jews to Drancy. General Charles de Gaulle, in his appeal on June 18, 1940 on the BBC, said, "France has lost a battle, but France has not lost the war," igniting Free French forces in London, fostering ties with internal groups. Early southern Maquis guerrillas emerged, while northern networks focused on intelligence. There was no one resistance. There were different key movements and diverse ideologies, but unity efforts starting to build and peaked under Jean Moulin, parachuted by de Gaulle on January 2, 1943. He merged southern movements into Mouvement Uni de la Résistance in January 1943 and formed the National Resistance Council in May, uniting 8 movements, 6 parties, and 2 unions. Communists joined Fighting France in January 1943, and by then membership was hitting approximately 200,000. The CNR coordinated actions for Allied support. Resistance actions encompassed anything from intelligence on the Atlantic Wall and Wehrmacht, sabotage of rail, power grids and telecoms, which were crucial post-D-Day in June 1944. The French Forces of the Interior, FFI, under CNR command, swelled from 100,000 in June to 400,000 by October, guiding allies, disrupting supplies and sparking the Paris Uprising in August 1944. The risks were immense. Arrests, torture, executions. Moulin himself died under torture in July 1943 at 44 years of age in Metz. Overall, 30,000 to 40,000 resistance perished. Women like Lucie Aubrac and networks aiding Jews exemplified moral defiance. Post-Normandy landings, FFI sabotage delayed German reinforcements, aiding Provence landings in August 1944 and Strasbourg's liberation in November, site of Macron's Bloch announcement. Politically, the resistance rejected Vichy, shaping post-war France via programs for social reform. Bloch embodies this fusion of intellect and action. His entry to the Pantheon, joining Moulin and others, affirm enduring values amid modern far-right tensions noted by his family. The resistance story, verified through declassified archives and survivor accounts, underscores civilian agency in total war, with Bloch's lucidity still touching today, resonating in 2026. Thank you for listening to Le Weekend, your one-stop destination for the main headlines in France. Catch our weekly roundup every weekend wherever you get your podcasts. Stay informed.